Hey guys, welcome to Unleash Podcast brought to you by Hidden Gene, where we talk about how to unleash your hidden potential. I'm your host, Yuri Diogenes, and we have a great episode for you today featuring Daniel Borden. Thank you for being on, Daniel.
Hey, thank you for having me, Yuri. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Before we jump into today's topics, we would like to invite you to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. You can always find this podcast in our hiddengene.net website. Again, hiddengene.net. And if you live in the area and you have not been at Hidden Gene, make sure to grab a free trial pass at hiddengene.net. All right, Daniel. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Couldn't be better. How about you?
Awesome, I'm doing great too. All right, then let's start talking a little bit about the background. So one of the reasons why Greg invited you to this podcast is to talk a little bit about um, your transformation, your recent weight loss and building muscle type of transformation. So let's get started talking a little bit about that and start with some lessons learned throughout the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I actually started this journey for myself around that towards the end of summer 2021, so about 5, 6 months ago, and I dove full in. I actually um, just it was just walked into Hidden Gym. I have a State Farm agency across the street, so it was perfect for me. Yeah. But I went in and was like, hey, I want to take this seriously. And so I needed a trainer. I signed up for 2 times a week. I was fortunate enough to collaborate with a few people on the Hidden Gym team,
Hmm.
Greg and Steven um, and several others, as well as Chris. So essentially, it was a process of, hey, Daniel, you're going to have to stick with the diet, and that's going to be step one, and of course the training. And I didn't realize how much of a learning curve there would be to getting my diet right.
Hmm.
Um, I felt even after 2 weeks of it, I felt like $1 million. Um, but I was not fully, I wasn't totally strict on it. It was like I was eating better foods, but the ratios were off.
Yeah.
But I still felt better. And they were like, hey, so you're doing this right. Can you do this? And going into it, I knew I had just asked myself a question: How far can I go? And that was just in the back of my mind when I started. So I just kept saying yes to everything, every new thing that they would teach me. It was like, okay, well, follow these macros. Okay, like semi accurate. No,
Do you
like
do you remember your base calorie intake in the beginning?
I had started when we first started. We were just eating the right. I was supposed to be doing 2,200 on a workout day,
Mm-hmm.
2,000 on a off day. But at that point, I was just figuring out how to not eat Sonic in the morning, so and still get to work. So I opened my business this year, or in 2021. So in March. So it was definitely a busy year for me, and I let it get to me a bit physically. But when I was following that, once I got the hang of it, that was the next step was, hey, follow the exact calories down. And when I did, I got to where every single day for, I believe it was 3 months, I was at 2,200, and we're talking I would be 2,190 to 2,210 was I was within that. That's how close I was every day. Um, and maybe I took it too far, but I mean, I would even if I was going to eat almonds, I would count the almonds to make sure that I was I was right where I was supposed
Yeah,
to be, because
that's
I
how
was
you
like,
do
if
it.
this system works,
Yeah.
if this system works, I'm gonna test it out. But then about a month and a half after, for 3 months, it was right there. And then after that, we bumped it down a little bit more of a cut because I had a goal I wanted to hit by the end of the year.
Hmm.
Uh, I wanted to get sub 8% body fat.
So you
And
never really focus on the amount of weight that you wanted to lose.
no, because I actually, I wanted to increase muscle mass.
So
And I
you
know
probably were going to increase your weight at some point.
exactly. So my overall health and my stats were more what my goals were set for rather than a specific weight. Because if I was a certain weight, but I still had a higher fat and low muscle mass, and I was tired all the time, then what would be the point of
Yeah.
it? I want to feel amazing and look amazing
Hmm.
is the goal. So I was looking more at, well, what's my body fat percentage, and can I keep what I was trying to do was keep my weight as close to my original as I could while losing the fat. I ended up still losing 17 pounds, which was surprising to me because that was right at 10% of my body weight that I lost.
Wow. Very interesting. Now, it looks like you were not really overweight. You just wanted to get in a better shape. So, what really drove you to walk at Hidden Gym at that point and make that big change? What was the motivation factor?
Man, so for me, I look at everything in my life as like, okay, what can be fulfilling for me? But I do like myself. I mean, I'm a believer in myself. I guess yeah, I'm a Christian, and so I try to live my life based off of the two main, I guess you could say, the two main rules that God gave us, which was love God and love people.
Hmm.
And over the last several years, developing my business plan and eventually opening my business, I learned that becoming the best version of yourself is one of the best ways to love people. And even when my office in our first year was succeeding, I noticed that whether we were succeeding or going through a rough spot, I was tired, and that affected my ability to coach, to train, to get to it affects capacity. And how I played that out for me was, okay, this is what I'm bringing to the table for the people around me.
So it
And
was like a wake up call. Like, well, the
oh
business is
yeah,
doing good, but in order for me to keep up, I have to change myself.
yeah, to keep up with that, yeah, and to really feel fulfilled, like with more of my life purpose, which I knew was more of my center for me. And I was like, okay, well, if I can, the very first thing I am is I'm a physical being. And if I'm not taking care of my physical, how on earth am I supposed to expect my business or my spiritual journey to thrive when I'm living inside a body that is not happy?
Yeah, yeah.
But I knew I just had to commit.
That's a very unique motivation factor. Most of the people that I talked about is about weight, is about, oh, I had a trip schedule and I want to get in shape for that trip. So it's that very interesting bringing your perspective of something very unique. And on that realm that you were, what you think made you successful in this journey? It was the fact that you were sticking with the plan. It was the discipline. It was the perseverance to
Mhm.
keep doing it. Because I'm pretty sure that at some point in time you also had some temptations to go and eat something that it was
Yeah,
not, on the menu. So what
sure.
really made you successful?
Absolutely. Yeah, so there were definitely some struggles along the way. I will say I was able to hit my goal, my initial goal of getting sub 8%. And that was in a 4.5 period. I had started about 14.4% and dropped down to 7.3. And what I really did was I just entered into it very um, with consistency and the idea of I'm going to be very methodical about this in mind. I had learned some concepts through business and through life, and I guess I'll give a little shout out to Grant Cardone. But one of the things he says is when you're taking a step, commit now and figure out the rest later. Because if you try to figure everything out before you commit, you'll never start.
Yeah, good point.
And so that is the prime reason. I had just gotten over a sickness in August, and that's when I had decided. I was like, I'm walking in this gym, I'm getting this membership. I'm not just getting a membership. I'm signing up for coaching. I'm going to talk to a dietitian, and everything they tell me, I'm going to do it. That was my step one. What got me through the temptations was, rather than take the approach of, so can I have a cheat day once a week, or like a cheat meal, or like where's my freedom? I took the opposite approach and said, if there's ever a seesaw, like if I'm ever teetering on this, is this a yes or a no? Choose the harder option every time. So should I do 4 or 5 cardio a week? 5. Should I go for 30 minutes or 20 minutes? 30 minutes. Just and I was just like, everything. Should I be a surplus of 20 calories today, or minus 20 calories? Minus. And I just, with everything. So I didn't have any cheat days. I just decided that was an option, that if I said yes to that, then it would be like,
Not
well,
even Thanksgiving?
not even Thanksgiving, actually. I
Wow.
will I will say New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve was my first official cheat meal, um, and but that was it, and I'm right back to it. So
Wow,
yeah, it was
very
just New
cool.
Year's. Thanksgiving, I had white turkey breast, um, and potato and some asparagus. It was
Were
amazing.
you counting the macros on Thanksgiving, or you were by that time you were so well trained that you were like, okay, I know that this combination here is good for me.
I knew the combination was good, but I did measure out the amount of each of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now do you think that now 6 months, pretty much 7 months, do you think that became a lifestyle that you're gonna be able to carry on?
Absolutely. As far as the like temptations, that I will say, when you're on a cut phase, I mean, there'd be some times where I would dream about food. Like I mean, food's amazing. But for me, I know not everyone's the same. For me personally, I love food.
Yeah.
Like, I love eating out. It's one of my hobbies. So when I cut that, it was a lifestyle change for
Yeah.
me. But when you feel the physical change in your body, the amount of energy I have, even my colleagues in the insurance industry were asking, Daniel, what happened? Like, you kicked into a whole nother gear.
Yeah.
The entire agency's production went up. My capacity, I just had way more energy throughout the day. And now each morning I look in the mirror, and I actually set time aside to look at my progress. And I didn't realize how important this was. But if I would be busy and I wouldn't look at my body, the temptation was stronger. But because you forget your progress,
Right.
and I'd forget why I was doing what I was doing. So now I make sure to look and go, hey, look at what you've done, Daniel. Like, look at your progress, and remind yourself that without what you've paid, you wouldn't have this.
Hmm.
And this is something to be cherished and valued.
Yeah, even your
And
self confidence in the business sometimes it changes. The way that you present yourself in the meeting, you just feel more confident overall.
absolutely, yeah, it's very rewarding. And honestly, the diet is, for at least for mine, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can cook food, and you don't have to put sugar and fats, and that when you eat a decent portion
Yeah.
and you get used to that, your body does get used
It
to it.
doesn't
It
need to
gets
be chicken and broccoli all the time.
exactly. No, definitely not.
Did you miss the sweets, or you're not really a guy that likes sweets?
Oh, I have a massive sweet tooth. Yeah, that is. Um, I didn't miss them for a long time, and I would say around the holidays, like Thanksgiving,
Uh,
I didn't have any sweets,
oh
and I
wow.
was surrounded by sweets. And I'm a pumpkin pie fanatic and chocolate cake, and they had this the Costco chocolate cake and this amazing pumpkin pie, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could eat both of those. I didn't.
But that's a very
Yeah.
interesting thing, right? Because at that point you didn't have any cheating meal. You already achieved your goal of 80% body fat. What really were you just challenging yourself to not derail? Why you didn't kind of reward yourself with like one piece? What really want you accomplish? Did you want to challenge yourself? Because to me it feels like that's what you did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for me, I do see a lot of areas in life where things can be a slippery slope,
Mm.
and I pay attention to that. So, in that area, I was like, well, this is step one. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I do want to gain size. That is the ultimate goal. So I've lost 17 pounds. I'm like down two, three belt buckles, and all my pants are too big. Like it's completely different in the right direction, but this is just the beginning of the
Yeah.
journey for me. And going, okay, am I going to start throwing in a little Reese's peanut butter cup here and a little Snickers here, even once a week? That once a week is going to become once a day before you know it. And I mean, once a day, that's like 700 calories right
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
of sugar and the wrong kind of fats.
No,
That's an entire meal.
that's a very
Uh,
important point, and that shows also the level of commitment that you put into this. It almost feels like if you do it, you're gonna feel guilt, and that little change may become a habit, and this is exactly what you want to avoid: is to become a habit,
yeah,
because you were able to do once. Now let me repeat again.
absolutely.
Now, did you have any problem balancing your workload as a business owner and the new lifestyle with the food and with the schedule to train and everything? Did you struggle a little bit with it, or was pretty natural?
It was a little easier than I realized. I live 7 minutes away from my office, so I'm able to either go home or I meal prepped a lot, so I would just bring food to the office so I could eat there during the day, even breakfast all the way through. But made it a practice. I just got more disciplined with everything, and like we mentioned, my performance got better at work. I mean, when I forced myself to eat 5 times a day, when before I was only eating twice, if that, but the wrong kind of meals and way too large. Now I'm pacing, then my pacing actually improved with everything else. So my sleep, my work schedule, how I managed my time, I was able to fit more in a day. I have been able to fit more in a day now that I do that. I will say, doing cardio and working out, I mean, I'm putting in probably 10 to 15 hours a week in the gym. But those are hours that are maximizing my other hours.
Because are you saying that because you train twice a day, like cardio early in the morning, then weight training later on?
I've been able to do so. I train 4 days a week, and then during the cut phase, I was doing four cardio a week, and I would put three of those cardio. I'm sorry, five cardio a week. I would put three of those on a non-train day, so that would be in the morning or at night whenever I could fit it in. but the goal was on an empty stomach is what I would do.
Hmm.
But when I would train, if I would do cardio on a train day, I would train first and then do cardio.
Right.
Same concept.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I do my best to do some sort of physical activity every single 7 days a week.
And you always go to the gym, or you do some of this workout at home?
So I did most everything at Hidden. Where I live, I have a Stairmaster
Hmm.
actually. So lucky enough to have one of those. So that I would do a lot of cardio there.
Yeah.
But everything else I was at Hidden.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
it's always good to have some sort of cardio equipment at home. Many to do those like early in the morning, empty stomach, fasting
Oh,
cardio. You know.
and stair stepper Yuri is to me was the lifesaver because
Yeah.
growing up I would jog and jogging right when you wake up, it's high impact. It's like it gets your adrenaline going, and I would say as humans we're like that's kind of a fight or flight instinct. That's flight, like
Yeah.
running. So when you wake up and the first thing you have to do in the morning is run for your life, it's a lot easier to just start that stair stepper at 5 or 6 and go, okay, I'm awake. Okay, I'm just walking upstairs. Okay, I can do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I agree. I
And
agree.
just
I have one
yeah.
in my garage, and also it's a lifesaver, and also really good on my knees because I really cannot run. I can stay 1 hour on a stairmaster, but I cannot run for 1 hour for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
Now we only talk about the good things and the way that you adjust. Now tell me the hardest part of this journey. I mean, I gotta have one. I mean, it was not only good things. Which was the hardest part that you said?
Yeah. No, I think I try to frame things like as soon as I get through it, I'm like, oh, see, I learned that, so it was good. But it took a long time to figure out the food, like to figure out how I was going to the portions. Well, I'll tell you, when I first did it, I was so overwhelmed with what Chris Prosser had sent over to me. I was like, dude, I have no idea how to break this down. Like, it was just too much. And he was like, just eat the foods on the bottom, start there, and just eat what. Don't worry about portions. Just only eat that. And I was like, okay. And once I got that down, he was able to switch it to another approach. So it was like, but it took several. It was like 3 weeks before I actually understood how the math worked, and even portioning because chicken breasts are all different sizes. Like nothing's cookie cutter,
Hmm.
and the way if I had it my way, it would all be cut perfectly for me. So learning that was definitely like I had to get a food scale and had to learn that cooked food weighs lighter than before it's cooked, but all the caloric content and the macros on the nutrition facts are when it's uncooked. So I'll just say on average, meat like salmon, ground beef, depending on what you get, 85 or 90, and chicken, they lose 80 to 80. I mean, the resulting weight is 80 to 85% of the uncooked weight.
Yeah.
So if you weigh something that's 6 ounces that's cooked, it's probably actually like 7.3 ounces. So I had to figure that out because I was like, if I'm that off every meal for 5 months,
Right. That's not gonna be good.
yeah, yeah. So that I will say I had to sit down and take however long it took to
Did
figure
you
that.
complement some of the meals with whey protein, or was everything was really food?
No, I did use protein, and that was nice. Like it helped buy me some time when I couldn't figure out how to weigh the and scale and cook the meat in time with my busy schedule. But I was having like 4 shakes a day.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, just to get the protein in. And I was like, man, I don't want to just be having protein all the time, protein shakes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I had to really sit down and go, okay, I need to figure out a system for myself everyone's different as far as what works for you. Not everyone lives 7 minutes from their office, but I had to figure it out. And once I did, then I was like, okay, I can eat chicken, I can eat salmon because I'm mainly cutting, and I tried to pick foods that were lower in calorie
Mm-hmm.
so that I felt like I was eating more.
Yep.
So avocado's fine for my diet, but I wasn't having avocado because it would use up too many of my calories, and I would feel like I wasn't eating in a
Yeah. What
day.
about eggs? A lot of eggs.
Only egg whites. So I would try to get my fat from something that was. I fell in love with almond butter, just organic Justin's almond butter. That was my dessert every day.
Now, Daniel, was this the first time that you ever done that, or did you do something similar in the past, or was really the first time that you went through a program where you had to control your diet, your training?
This is the first time. I've done things in the past where I focused on discipline, but I didn't have a coach. So I had some concept. I had a YouTube video or a football buddy, right? And they'd say, oh, this is how you put on size. And I would be really strict. And that was what I learned about myself was I'm good at being disciplined. Um, but I knew that I needed to surround myself with people who had experience in the game and who were winners. And that's why I was like, well, I'm going to look for a great team. And I found Hidden Gym.
Did you also learn a lot from the training perspective? Because it feels like you learn a lot from the nutrition. What about the training? Did you, uh, uh, learn some strategies that work better for you based on the experience at Hidden?
Absolutely. I learned a lot of things. I did learn some form. I've had some good training in the past on form, but there just some new things about how to pace a workout
Mm-hmm.
so that you're giving your body the best amount of you put it in the right amount of exhaustion at the end
Right.
of the workout, and then I'm getting the right amount of recovery. I learned about how important it is what to eat before you work out. I learned the different foods that where I used to, man, I would have to eat 2 hours before I worked out because I didn't realize what the food I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
But now I can eat 30 minutes before I work out and I have more energy, but I don't get nauseous like I used to. So, but that's all just trial and error talking through with the trainer going, man, I'm nauseated. He's like, well, why?
Yeah.
Well, I ate an hour ago. And he's like, well, what'd you eat? And so a lot of it was just natural, just through the conversation, even between sets, we'd talk about form and
But
different
since
things.
your goal is to build muscle, did you also learn more about the weight training from the perspective of, because one thing that we see a lot, mainly for people that go through this process of learning to lift to get big, is they immediately want to lift heavy, and it doesn't really work that way, right? So did you also learn
Oh,
anything on that manner?
yeah. I was always wanting to go heavier, and it was funny because they were like, "Man, you're pushing yourself hard. We almost have to make sure that you don't injure yourself."
Right.
Um, which would I was glad to push myself. But what I did learn was that if you're in a cut phase, you have a different approach than in a building phase
Mm-hmm.
or an off-season phase. And you want to maintain as much muscle as possible. But the I would say that if I learned one thing, it was activate the muscle more than brag about the numbers you
Yeah, you
pushed.
have to definitely leave your ego outside.
Absolutely. And when you leave your ego outside, that's when you see the improvements,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is incredible because it's like the reverse goal is you want something to brag about. Well, leave your ego outside and go drop the weight by 20 pounds so that your form is right,
Yeah.
and your breathing is right.
And you are
And but
squeezing the muscle correctly.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And seeing that, it's like, man, I lost weight, but I looked like I was more jacked than when I started.
Yeah, it's amazing when you really start putting things together. The nutrition, the training, it's like magic. Start to happen. Like wow, now everything is working. Right? It's
Absolutely.
really a fantastic feeling to see everything coming together for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, did you do anything special from the recovery perspective, like cryo or any type of massage or anything, or you really didn't have to work on that yet?
No, I did. So, and I'm glad you mentioned I just grabbed my gallon water jug. So I did learn that I had to drink a gallon of water every day.
Hmm.
That was for recovery. Um, I would put some of the like Hydra BCAAs in there, and just sip on it throughout the day. Um, some glutamine after a workout. So I started paying attention to what I was my supplements, and I did see a chiropractor. I would say, man, maybe twice a month. Actually, yeah, it was about twice a month, and just to make, and that actually was more important than I even knew, because she would reset everything, and how tight I was before compared to how much more mobility I had after. That's what helped me, because I honestly think that I would have been struggling a few months in,
Hmm.
with a lot of aches and
Yeah,
pains and not been able to do certain exercises. I haven't had one problem.
that's awesome. That's great. And I'm glad you've done that. Very important. A lot of people they completely skip the recovery part, and then they get stuck on the progress and they don't know why.
Yeah, I've had to stretch. I've had to make sure I stretch a lot too.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, the time went by really fast. It was
Yeah.
a great conversation. I think that this is an excellent episode to go out right in the beginning of the year where people are still working on that New Year's resolution. Great example of grit and persistence and discipline, right? So I'm really, really glad we're able to record it right now, right in the beginning of the year, because I think this is going to help a lot of people. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Yuri. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in on another episode of Unleash Podcast, and see you again next time.